Okay. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
All right. So this is the intro to speech and debate. Oh, sorry, there's one person. So this is going to be the intro to speech and debate class by Simple Tutor, and I'm your instructor. My name is Bharat Muthusamy. And we've created this class this year because speech and debate is a growing passion for many young kids, and it's very good for many young kids. So that's why we're teaching this today. Oops. So a little about me. My name is Bharat Muthusamy, and I'm a Lincoln Douglas debater at Archbishop Mitty High School. I have experience in Congress debate, extemporaneous speaking, parliamentary debate, and public forum debate. I was top 16 at the Martin Luther King Jr. Invitational, undefeated at League Two, and top 16 in the Last Chance National Qualifications Tournament. I competed in LD for all of the above tournaments. So as as a quick number in the chat from 1 through 5, 5 meaning you know a lot about debate, and 1 meaning you know very little about debate. Can everyone drop a number of like how much they know about debate and public speaking in general? Just a number 1 through 5, 5 being the highest.
1.
Okay, I see a lot of 4s. I see a lot of like 0, 1s, and 2s and 3s. So just a clarification, this is going to be pretty basic, like overview of all the debate events, and then researching in debate, and moreover flowing and experience in round. I'm just going to teach everyone those general lines, and then when we move throughout the course, we're going to I guess develop our skills in debate. All right. Okay, I'm assuming everyone put a number in there, and then we're just gonna go ahead and begin the presentation. Oops. All right, so why speech and debate? So I did speech and debate because I wanted to improve my critical thinking and communication skills, and speech and debate can help develop strong communication skills, including public speaking. You have better articulation and persuasive abilities. So what this translates to in, when you grow up and you have a job is that you're better able to communicate with your peers and I guess like manage the people around you and your own abilities. Communication is necessary in basically every workplace nowadays, especially if you want to become a lawyer or, huh? Can everyone hear me? Is that good? Am I okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
sometimes it's like cutting out.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll come a little closer. So, speech and debate is really important for your critical thinking skills. Speech and debate cultivates a lot of critical thinking skills, especially when you research and you become more knowledgeable about the world around you. And critical thinking skills are developed through like participating in debate when you create arguments and you develop your arguments and you make certain points that go against and for whatever topic you're arguing against or for. You improve your critical thinking skills when you evaluate evidence and then you form logical and well-reasoned positions in debate. This is really important because you want to think on the fly, and it's a really important skill that debate really cultivates. So the third main point why I did debate is because I wanted to improve my research abilities. In high school, you really need to be able to research in order to create good papers for maybe your history class or your English class, and you need to have good research skills in order to manage your time and moreover manage your ability to convey the information in certain sources. And participants in speech and debate learn how to conduct thorough research and gather evidence from various sources and synthesize and analyze that information to support their arguments. And by improving your research ability and creating many different talking points in debate, that skill really translates to other forms of your life, such as in school or other places. Fourth is analytical skills. So speech and debate trains participants to analyze really complex topics, assess different viewpoints, and construct well-structured arguments. This is important because when you combine critical thinking and other research abilities, you get a really well-rounded person, and you become a really well-rounded person when it comes to just being being an intellectual and kind of moving on with your career in academics and in college. Speech and debate also gives you an awareness of current issues. Speech and debate requires participants to engage with current events, social issues, and policy debates. I think this is especially important for our generation because so many things around us are, changing consistently and perpetually, adapting to our environment. So when we want to look at the awareness of current issues, it's always important as citizen to be very aware of your current issues around you. And it's really important. And it's a very important thing that debate really conveys as a skill. Moreover, like speech and debate gives you an extreme, or like not extreme, but a very good advantage in college and career opportunities, because participation in speech and debate is highly regarded by colleges and universities. There are many schools where they have their own debate teams, and you can get specifically recruited for debate. And moreover, it enhances your college applications because it demonstrates your intellectual curiosity, communication abilities, and your commitment to personal growth. So all of these are important because when you go to college with the skills you take from here, such as communication, critical thinking, research, analytical skills, it gives you an edge in college, and moreover, an edge in the college admissions process. Oops. So the four main debate events are: first, policy debate. This is the debate event that's in most schools and mainly what are in most colleges. They have a college league for this, and it's the main event that you'll find at the collegiate level. Lincoln Douglas debate is another form of debate. It's derived from policy debate, and it has a lot of attributes of policy debate, but is the only one-on-one debate format where you debate more on morals rather than policy. And there is a lot of policy involved, but it's more you debate on morals and ethics-based resolutions. A public forum debate is one of the most popular forms of debate, as it is introduced in middle school usually. So when you look at public forum, it's a 2v2 debate format where you talk about general topics and general policies that are going on the international scale. And I'd say it's similar to Lincoln Douglas debate in the sense that it has a lot of crossfire and cross-examinations. And the last debate event is parliamentary debate. I believe this is more, like left to California debate because it's not on the national level. This is the only debate event that's not on the national level, that is in California and some other states. Parliamentary debate is very interesting, where you don't research beforehand and you're given an allocated amount of time, like 15 minutes, to do your research before the round. And I think this really improves your quick thinking skills, and it's a very good debate event. But if you want to focus more on the traditional side of debate events, you should definitely look at policy, Lincoln Douglas, or public forum. Now, first, let's introduce policy. Policy is known to be the most, prestigious debate event, and its format is a 2-on-2 competitive debate format. This is one of the most competitive, one of the hardest debate events to get extremely good at, or just good at in general. And the interesting part of this, debate style is that each year a new resolution or topic for the debate is released. So topic releases happen on a annual schedule instead of, a bi-monthly or, tri-monthly schedule where, compared to other events such as public forum and Lincoln Douglas. And that's the most interesting part about this, because when you're developing your arguments, you have different arguments from very early on in the resolution compared to at the end of the year, where everyone kind of understands the topic, and it kind of the topic really marinates in the debate rounds, and there's a lot of nuance and different types of arguments being made, and it's one of the most interesting forms of debate. For the time limits, for the first affirmative constructive, which is just the affirmative of the resolution giving a speech, promoting a policy, it's 8 minutes. For the negative gets a cross-examination period of 3 minutes. Then comes a negative constructive of 8 minutes, which is them giving their constructive speech plus some rebuttal against the affirmative constructive. Then you have the then you have the affirmative rebuttal, which is 5 minutes. It's given by the affirmative to generally refute the claims the negative has made and also promote their case. The negative rebuttal is again 8 minutes. They get another one where they refute the affirmative and they reconstruct their case. Then the affirmative gets another speech where they just kind of final focus. They give a summary of everything and why the judge should vote for them, their weighing mechanisms such as magnitude, probability, and time frame. And the negative rebuttal does the same. Oops. So the affirmative presents the affirmative case supporting a specific policy proposition, and it advocates for a specific plan addressing the resolution's topic. So if the resolution is about building, oil pipelines in the Black Sea, then they have to give a specific plan in which to develop, this type of oil pipeline, etc. And the negative has to challenge the affirmative case and defend the status quo or an alternative position. So it presents counter arguments and disadvantages to the affirmative plan. And you can also run a CP, which is a counter plan that creates a new plan that's better than the affirmatives, that has its own voters or points that the judge should weigh upon and look upon when deciding the outcome of the debate. Now, when you look at the cross-examinations, the negative debater cross-examines the affirmative after their constructive speeches, and this provides an opportunity to question and challenge the affirmative case. In general, cross-examinations are really good because you can poke holes at the affirmative or negative case, your opponent's case. And moreover, when you set up good questions for the cross-examination, it really allows you to develop your arguments later on based on what happens in the cross-examination. But one thing to note is that whatever happens in the cross-examination, if not brought up in a constructive speech or rebuttal speech, will not be considered in the outcome of the round. So even if you make a really good point during your cross-examination, you have to bring it up in your constructive or rebuttal speeches. And that's why it's extremely important to have a good cross-examination, because when you poke a hole, during the, in your opponent's case during the cross-examination, it's, you can really kind of like tear down their tower and, win the round. So for the rebuttals, the affirmative rebuttal responds to negative arguments and reinforces the affirmative case. The negative rebuttal develops negative arguments and counters the affirmative rebuttal. The affirmative rebuttal summarizes affirmative arguments and refutes negative claims, and the negative rebuttal summarizes negative arguments and counters affirmative rebuttal. So just as a no policy debate is one of the longest rounds, so they usually last up to like 1 to 1.5 hours, depending on how quickly you go. And that's like the only downside to the event. It's become less popular over the years as Lincoln Douglas and Public Forum have taken over, but it is the most prestigious event. So we'll move on to Lincoln Douglas debate. So Lincoln Douglas debate is a one-on-one competitive debate format. Each tournament so each league provides its own resolution or topic for a debate. So every 3 months, the NSDA or the national debate organization, the largest one, will release a resolution that or release a group of resolutions that coaches and debaters can vote on, and the one with the greatest votes will be the resolution for a 3-month period. So regarding the time limits, so the affirmative constructive is 6 minutes, and the negative. Hello, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Boodles, are they like if that's how you pronounce it, are they like supporting a negative case, like a negative rebuttal or whatever they pronounce it, supporting affirmative case or a negative case?
So if you're doing the negative rebuttal, then it's the negative's chance to rebut against whatever the affirmative has said. So for example, if the affirmative says something is good in the first 6-minute speech, the negative can then say, oh, okay, this is not good. But then what they also do in the rebuttal and constructive is that they boost their own case. So, in an argument, you always have to first attack your opponent, like attack their argument, and then, kind of reinforce your own argument. Shravani, you can go ahead and ask a question if you'd like.
I used to be in a debate in my school. When we were learning like how to debate, they used like prop and opposition.
Yeah,
For
they
like
use that
things.
also. Specifically where I'm from in California, there we use affirmative and negative. So in parliamentary debate, I believe they use proposition and opponent.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So it basically means the same thing. So just remember, like, I just try to make it simple for everyone where the affirmative is for a topic and then the negative is against a topic, if that makes sense for everyone. All right, so when we move on for the Lincoln Douglas debate, there are collegiate levels to Lincoln Douglas debate, and it's becoming one of the more popular debate formats, specifically because it's one-on-one, so you only rely on yourself to win the round, which I think is pretty interesting. And when we look at the time limits, so the affirmative constructive is 6 minutes. Usually there'll be a value, which is what you're trying to achieve at the end of the day, such as, global welfare, like utilitarianism. And then you have a value criterion, which is the means of achieving that, such as, improving, relations, etc. So when we look at, the affirmative, you always have to present a value criterion, which is a way of achieving the value, and then your definitions, observations, and then contentions. So yeah, Ishan, go ahead. You can ask a question.
So what do they do in the cross-examination?
So the cross-examination is basically to clarify some things in the debate. So for example, if the affirmative says something that's questionable, then you can like set up a question where it's like, do you believe this is correct? And huh? Hello? Was someone asking a different question? Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead. So it's mainly to the cross-examination. You're just trying to clarify things in the debate, such as maybe if you heard something wrong or you're trying to get the source for something. It's a really good opportunity to kind of like clarify the debate and try to like poke holes in your opponent's arguments when they don't give great answers. Yeah, I can say pro and con if it makes it easier for some. So when we move on to the negative constructive, so the first 4 minutes are allocated towards building your own contention. So why, a certain resolution or topic shouldn't be passed or shouldn't be voted for. That's what the first 4 minutes of the negative constructive is for, or like the con constructive. And then the rest 3 minutes is completely for rebuttal. So you should be refuting what the affirmative said in their speech and points such as that. And you should also move towards kind of like picking on certain things from the cross-examination, so you have a really good basis for I guess moving towards in the debate. Then the negative does their cross-examination on the affirmative case, or sorry, the affirmative does their cross-examination. Affirmative a rebuttal, which is 2 minutes usually of supporting their case, 2 minutes of refuting the case, and usually it's the other way around. So refutation and then I guess support to their own case. Then the negative gives a full-on like basically counterattack of the whole negative case. Then they move towards why the negative is better and kind of summarize for the judge why the negative should win the round. So that's what you should do in your negative rebuttal. And especially in LD, you don't really have like a specific time for the final focus. A lot of people do a lot of different things, specifically like it's depending on where you're from, because I know people in Minnesota like do more refutation in the first affirmative rebuttal, and then or like do less refutation in the first affirmative rebuttal and do more like supporting their own case. And it just depends on where you're from, but I'm just giving a general guideline on what to do in a debate. So for the final focus, a final focus is basically a summary for the judge. So you're telling them why you should win, on what points you won, and then like for what reasons you won. So it's like the amount of people that's going to be affected more. Is the time frame going to be less? So are the effects going to happen quicker? So that's what we're trying to focus here, and that's what you want to convey towards a judge. So the affirmative's main obligations are that they have to present an argument that supports the resolution, and it offers a philosophical, ethic, or value-based analysis. So that's really important because the entirety of Lincoln Douglas debate is definitely based off ethics and morals. Now, what the negative has to do is challenge the affirmative's arguments and defend the opposite position. Usually in league tournaments or like regular tournaments, counter arguments aren't really allowed, or like, sorry, counter plans aren't really allowed because they're considered abusive, and abusive as in like people may not have preparation against them, and you can throw a lot of different arguments, especially when you're running a counter plan. So that's left to towards the policy debaters, and that's why policy is a little harder of an event in general. But Lincoln Douglas is a great introduction event to the intro event to debate. And it's a little easier to the point where you don't have that many complications until you get to the circuit level, which is people talk really fast, and that's just a really like an advanced level. So what the negative has to do is challenge the affirmative's argument and defend the opposite position. So you can't, run a counter plan usually. So you have to defend the opposite position. And you also have to provide a counter argument that critiques the affirmative case. So not only can you like say that it's simply bad, but you have to specifically attack what's bad about your I guess or you have to attack what the affirmative has. And in the cross-examination, you want to like allow a debater to question the opponent and get a proper answer. What a lot of people would do is that they try to take up time and give really long answers, but you want to cut them off if you're the one giving the questions. Sahasara, you can go ahead and ask a question.
Will you post these slides in the Google Classroom?
Yeah, I will. I can do that. Okay. I think someone drew something on the slide, but that's fine, I guess. So for the rebuttal, so the negative rebuttal responds to the affirmative case and then reinforces the negative arguments. So that's what you want to do every opportunity you get. You want to attack your opponent's case and then re-support whatever the affirmative has said against you, and like kind of bolster your case in front of the eyes of the judge. So the affirmative rebuttal does the same thing. Now for public forum debate, this is another 2v2 debate format. It's a little bit more complicated. So I'll explain it. So it's one of the most popular 2-on-2 competitive debate formats because a lot of people do it in middle school. It's also the most saturated, which basically means like there's a lot of people who are really, really good because they started at an extremely early age. Keep that in mind when you choose a debate format, or specifically a debate event to do, because you want an event where you can kind of grow and it's a little easier on you, like specifically at the beginning. So maybe try out in parliamentary, or you can go directly into policy debate. It's not that harsh because they have a junior varsity levels. But what you want to look at is like just as a like main point about public forum, that it's extremely saturated to the point where yeah, so it's like extremely like saturated because there's just a lot of really, really skilled people. So now each tournament, or the or each organization like the NSDA, or the collegiate organization, will provide a resolution or topic. This will generally be similar to a policy debate where there are different resolutions every or like different types of policy resolutions every couple of months. And for general outline for the time limits, the constructive speech, which is the first team, is 4 minutes, and the crossfire, which is a little different than cross-examination, is 3 minutes. So the crossfire is basically at like a time period where the team 2 can ask questions to team 1, but the team 1 can also ask questions to team 2. Because like, for example, if you ask some question about their case, then they can be like, do you not agree with this, etc., etc., etc. So like crossfire is much more I guess complicated because you have people asking each other questions, which makes for a really good debate. And then the second team gives a constructive speech of 4 minutes. Then they have their crossfire. Then they have the first summary speech for both teams, which is 2 minutes each. Okay, and then they have a grand crossfire, which is 3 minutes, where everyone can ask everyone different questions, and then they have final focus speeches. So for the team roles, the first there's 2 people per team, and they have their own role. So the first one is promoting the affirmative case and arguments, and then they respond to the crossfire. And the second person usually goes against the negative and case and arguments. So now when you look at the constructive speech, each team presents their main arguments and evidence supporting their positions, and then they move towards the crossfire where the teams engage in direct questioning and answering. And this allows for real-time exchanges and clarifications of arguments. And the summary speeches are important because each team delivers a summary speech highlighting key arguments and clashes with the opposing team's case. The grand crossfire is really important because all debaters, like all four, engage in a crossfire session together, and this provides an opportunity to challenge the opponent's arguments collectively with your partner. And the final focus speech, each team delivers a final focus speech emphasizing the most important points and why they should win the debate. So that's generally how every debate goes, where you have a back and forth action, and there's a lot of good clash, which the judges like to see. Now, so this is the final main debate event. There's also something called Congress, which is like in between speech and debate, which I'll get into in the next class. So the format of this is parliamentary debate is a competitive debate format that simulates the styles of debate held in parliamentary settings, such as in the United Kingdom. Usually two teams consisting of two debaters each participate in a parliamentary debate. So for the topics are released before every round. So for example, if you're in a tournament and you're in the first round, they'll release a topic that's along the lines of a certain I guess like guidelines. So usually if you go to a tournament, but before you go to the tournament, they'll be like they'll give you a list where the first round will be about topics about Africa. The second one will be about the Middle East. Third will be about India. Fourth will be about East Asia, maybe some climate policies. They'll give you like a general guideline of what the topic is. So you can research a lot about the topics beforehand, which is, I'd say pretty good. And then once you get a general idea of all the possible topics for a tournament, they'll give you a topic like 15 to 25 minutes before your round, and then you have to basically research on the spot. So you take your laptop out, you take a piece of paper, and then you start writing down your contentions and your main arguments. It's really good for critical thinking and quick thinking specifically, and it's pretty highly regarded because they do have a collegiate level in certain colleges, in certain groups of colleges. And the way it works is first you have a constructive speech, which is the government. They're the people who are proposing a the affirmative with the topic, and that's usually 7 minutes. Then the opposition gives a constructive speech with the rebuttal for 7 minutes. Then they each give a rebuttal speech for 4 minutes. So that's generally sorry. Okay, sorry. And then the government, which is the affirmative, present their arguments, propose a position on the topic. Opposition debaters respond by presenting their counter arguments. The rebuttal speeches are generally that the government debaters or the affirmative refute opposition arguments and defend their position. Opposition debaters refute government arguments or the affirmative arguments and present their case as better. Teams are given 15 to 25 minutes to prepare their arguments and strategy after the topic is announced. There's also something extremely interesting about this debate format, because during the speeches, you can actually ask questions to whoever's giving a speech. So for example, they're called points of information or POIs. So if you want to really clarify something, you can ask POIs during the opponent's speech to ask questions or make brief comments. The speaker can choose to accept or decline POIs. So generally, if you guys want to note this down, you can ask 2 to 3 POIs, and then and if you're the one giving the speech, you should always take 2 to 3 POIs. And when you decline a POI, it kind of I guess it like kind of molds a bad look on your case and generally how prepared you are. So you should definitely take the POIs, take the points of information, but you should also clarify if they're asking like 5 questions, that you're not going to take any more questions and you want to get through your case and get through the time allotted to you. So as a quick question, has anyone heard of these events like prior or competed in these events? So you can just say yes or no, and then maybe what event you've competed in or like you know about. You can just go ahead and put in the chat. So if you're saying yes, just tell me the event you've done before. So I know like the general I guess like what event people are familiar with. Okay, public forum. So to answer a question Shravani asked me, so I don't believe there are any debate events with like 3 people on the proposition and 3 people on the opposition. So this might be Congress, but Congress chambers are usually larger than that, where it's like you gather as a group and you kind of emulate and you act like lawmakers. Okay, so I saw a lot of public forums. So public forum, is like the main introduction debate event for a lot of people. And it's I guess just the most popular because it's the most like it gains the most exposure. But I definitely think if you move into like debate events such as parliamentary, you can really increase your quick thinking skills, because that's it really helps out in the long run, especially when you transition to other debate events, because once you learn really quick thinking skills when you're given prep time. So specifically like in Lincoln Douglas and policy debate, you get prep time. So I believe I'm not sure how much policy debate gets, but I know Lincoln Douglas debate gets 4 minutes of prep time. So in between any of your speeches, you can take 4 minutes of prep time to prep to support your case or go against an opponent's case. So when when you gain those really quick thinking skills in parliamentary debate, you can really translate those skills over to other formats such as Lincoln Douglas debate and policy debate. Now, so when we look at researching in debate, so there are 2 things you need to research for in debate as a basis. So first, for the three main events, such as policy debate, Lincoln Douglas debate, and public forum debate, you need to have an affirmative case, and then you need to have a negative case. So these usually consist of 1 to 3 contentions for both the policy or for LD cases. Sorry, I forgot to update this, but it's 1 to 3 contentions for the LD case, usually up to 3 on the affirmative side, and then up to I'd say also 3, but mostly 2 contentions on the negative side. And then each one has multiple cards, which are kind of excerpts of evidence, or which you take from like online sources, from credible sources, that kind of like propose your argument and develop your argument. So if a certain author from like CNN says, oh, okay, this is good, then you can take what they said, cite it and make it a card. I'll show an example of what a card looks like, and then like how you create a case. So when you look at public forum cases, I believe they have a lot more contentions, or just a lot more cards, like points, I guess. So they have like, I believe 10 to 12. And then I'm not sure about policy, so I will clarify that in the next session or next class next Wednesday. So, and the second thing you must need for any debate tournament, like you will not win a single round without this, is refutations against the opponent's contentions. So generally, when you look at a a topic, you'll get a general sense just from looking online what the general contentions and arguments are going to be. And what you can do for this is you can prep against those arguments. So if you're on the affirmative, you can prep against, or like prepare against common negative arguments. And then if you're on the negative, you can prep against common affirmative arguments. So what this allows you to do is that you can literally read off of like a card, which is an excerpt of from some source which basically states that, okay, what this side is saying is not true, or what this side is like saying is not true. And then you can basically use that as a solid base, and then you can build off that with your own like critical thinking and argumentation. But blocks, or kind of like you're blocking your opponent's arguments, are necessary for anyone to win around. Like you can even like I guess like fake your case, or like just read off a paper, which I don't recommend doing, but it's like definitely possible. But you can't win without blocks, because blocks are the most important piece of information in any debate. So blocks are basically pre-written cards necessary to win a debate round. They provide refutations from credible sources. And as a general guideline in researching, always use reliable sources, and don't try to abbreviate or like use abbreviations to mask clearly biased sources. So you want to have credible sources that aren't extremely biased. So you're looking for sources that talk about both sides of an issue, and then understand why they're making this certain point. You should always have the full website available and sourced, if your opponent ever asks for it in a round, where they're like, okay, can you show me the source for this evidence? So you should always have reliable sources, because you will lose a round if you're trying to do some like fishy stuff with your sources. So when you look at like creating a case and contentions, always center your case around like a weighing mechanism. So when you look at the value and value criterion, so the value being like what you're trying to achieve at the end of the day, are you trying to achieve I don't know, morality? Are you trying to achieve justice? So whatever you're trying to do, kind of weigh around that. So if you're trying to achieve justice and you're looking at the weighing mechanism of magnitude, which is basically telling the judge, look, like our magnitude has more weight, our argument has more weight, and it's more important, because magnitude basically means it's affecting, you know, a large amount of people, a large amount of things. There's a large like inherent effect to whatever you're saying. You should always have your causes, you should have your effects, and then you should kind of develop your argumentation. A lot of the stuff, if you don't understand what I'm saying now, I'm going to put the Google Slides on the Google Classroom, and you can also do your own research. But I believe you learn a lot from simply like doing debate. Like there are a lot of coaches, like especially at your, maybe if you go into high school or middle school, that'll give you a really good idea of kind of what all the intricate details are regarding debate. So you should always, you know, center your case around magnitude, scope, probability, or time frame, which basically means magnitude is the amount of, you know, like the magnitude of the people affected, or, you know, what's going on. The scope is the range of people affected. So, you know, like different countries, different people, like migrants, or, you know, like those type of people, especially when you're like debating ethics debate, it pops up a lot. The probability of something happening is also really important, because you can also say, okay, my opponent's, you know, whole case, their whole argument isn't really true, because it's not going to, you know, come to fruition. It's not going to come to real life, because the probability of like this happening is extremely low. So that's a good argument you can make. But you could also argue, you know, the probability of all the effects that I'm saying are very high. And therefore you should vote against this, you know, the topic, the resolution, because it's not going to bring, I guess, solvency, which is a solution to the problem. Time frame is also important, because if something doesn't happen in a timely manner, sometimes it doesn't matter, because if you're looking at maybe like a climate change topic, if you're not fixing climate change quick enough, then the effects of whatever you're doing don't really matter, because you know, climate change is going to like destroy the world, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So even if you make a small dent in climate change and you're doing all this, it's better to stay on the current track because of, you know, X reason, Y reason. And that's like the main reason, or that's the main ideology you should look when you're kind of researching debate, because you want to base everything off a solid baseline. Sorry. And then you want to move towards kind of developing a cohesive argument. Now, for regarding cases, you need to first, like before anything, usually you'll have your coaches or your captain give you a general rundown of all the topic, like the general topic. So you must familiarize yourself with the debate topic or resolution. And you need to clearly understand all the key terms, concepts, and arguments related to the topic. You also need to identify key arguments. So determine the main arguments that are likely to be discussed in a debate, or like made in a debate, and look for the common positions or points of contention on the topic. So whatever your opponent is contending for, you need to prep against. That is mandatory. That is something you need to do in order to win rounds. Now, you must utilize, you know, reliable sources. You got to seek information from credible and reputable sources, such as academic journals, books, or, you know, reputable websites, you know, news websites. Government publications are a great place, and expert opinions. So, for example, if you're researching something about the Supreme Court, you want a federal judge as your opinion. So someone really, really in depth into that, you know, field of law. You know, those people are really good when you're looking at people you want to kind of, I get, or like kind of like develop your argument upon, because the credibility and reliability of your sources kind of like determines the overall quality of your case, if that makes sense. So you need to conduct comprehensive searches before, like, you know, kind of making your case, because you don't want to look at the first topic and just take that, because there's going to be like tens or like thousands of people who are going to take that same, you know, I guess like source, and going to take the same information out of it. So it'll become like really repetitive. Try to look through like, you know, library databases. There's stuff like JSTOR. They have really good like library databases where they have really expert opinions, but it's not really available to everyone because they don't look for it, if that makes sense. Because, you know, most of these library databases are most of the time free, but you can also get waivers from your school if that's necessary, if it's like a paid database. You can use search engines. So like people even use ChatGPT to get like the most credible people of, the time on this topic. And then you can move towards like once you find, oh, okay, this guy is the most credible or this woman is the most credible, then you can move towards kind of like researching about them and what their position is on a certain topic. And you can use online resources like to conduct comprehensive searches, because nowadays, especially like with this like artificial intelligence, chat gpt, etc., it's really easy to do a lot of research. And especially when you're building the case, you want to build a cohesive argument, because once you've gathered the sufficient information, you want to like synthesize or like combine the different perspectives, evidence and arguments to construct your own basically position. Now, okay, there's a couple of people waiting to be admitted. 1 second. All right, so this is usually the case structure. I'm just gonna erase some marks made on the screen by someone. I believe that's it. So for the general case structure, what you want to see is that you have your definitions and observations. So the definitions are just terms that like you can use to clarify the debate. So you can say, okay, this means this, like the law means this, or stuff like any definitions that kind of help you to win your debate. So this is like definitely a point of like an area where you should definitely like work on in order to help your debate out. When you want to look at observations, this is usually the negative side, because in many cases where the affirmative is making a case, you can observe and make the observation that I don't have to say the status quo or like the current situation is good. I only have to argue that the future situation or the affirmative world, like a world in which the affirmative plan is passed, is going to be net worse, which means it's just going to be worse. So you can make that observation, and those type of definitions and observation can really help out your debate, because it kind of sets up a guideline and structure to kind of what you're arguing. Because if your opponent kind of concedes or says, okay, so I agree with your definitions, I agree with your observations, then they can't bring up anything against that. And if they do, it's an extreme detriment to their entire case and to their entire debate. Now, usually there's going to be a value and value criterion. So the value is going to be the like what you're trying to achieve at the end of the day. Are you trying to achieve justice? Are you trying to achieve morality? Like what are you trying to achieve through being the negative or being the affirmative? Now, the value criterion is the criteria in which you can achieve your value. So through like maximizing societal welfare or utilitarianism, I'm going to improve justice, I'm going to improve morality, etc., etc., etc. It's always important to have a value and value criterion, because that is your framework. And without a framework, you basically can't win a debate. And if your opponent calls you out on this, you will not have a chance to win the debate, because your opponent will also propose a value and value criterion, and they will also have the opportunity to completely base the debate of what they want to base it. And your case will most likely not fit their value and value criterion unless it's a similar debate. Now, for Lincoln Douglas debate, you're going to have contention 1, you're going to have a subpoint A and a subpoint B. So usually you're going to have like a first contention, such as all borders should be open. Then you'll have a subpoint A, it's like why they should be open and the effects of et cetera, et cetera. You should always have an impact for every subpoint. So that's basically what a card is. I'll show an example at the end of the slides. Or I can just show it now, actually. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you see the Word document where it says compiled neg blocks? Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so usually, this was for a topic a couple months ago. So my team and I basically created a bunch of AT means attack, like a response to. So if your opponent, like these are small blocks, so you basically take a source, an author, the year that they created, or like the year that they created the created the resource, the title of the resource right here, and then you have the link to the resource, obviously. So you can always make an argument that you can like turn an argument. So you can say that this argument actually comes into our favor. So when my opponent, let's say they run trust as a contention, or like a lot of these are big words like legitimacy, right? You can always make different blocks, like even these like small analytic points, it works out. So you can create like the highlights. This study has asked whether a term limit regime might lead to a greater legal instability. Like you can argue things like that. As you do more and more debate, this like all this stuff will become less and less complicated. But that's just how it is currently. So like AT basically means response to. So you have a response to the climate change argument, you have a response to the neglects majority argument, you have a response to the better decisions argument, ideological imbalance, etc., etc., etc. So if my opponent ever makes any one of these contentions, I can just like in my rebuttal just read off this, and that's the end of story. Maybe I can add some of my own analysis if I want, but all I have to do is read off this and I've properly refuted their claim. You need to make sure that you refute every single one of my your opponent's claims. So if they say better decisions, like the judges are going to make better decisions, there's going to be less ideological balance, etc., etc. You need to respond to that, or else it continues on throughout the debate and it's going to create issues for you. Shravani, you can go ahead and ask a question if you'd like.
For using like these cards,
Uh-huh.
do you usually make them like during the actual debate or
So,
like off topic?
So generally, like what we'll get an idea of is like the general kind of arguments that's going to be made. So such as like, for example, like trust is an argument. So this topic was about like, should Supreme Court judges be on I guess the Supreme Court bench for a lifetime, or should they have like term limits like the president, like every 20 years, et cetera, et cetera. So like you should always kind of research beforehand, because it's kind of hard to cut a block, like a proper block during a round. Like you obviously can, like people on my team, like men and women both, who are extremely good, they can cut cards in round, which allows them kind of like develop a really specific argument. But you want to like, you only get 4 minutes to do that, and then you want to pay attention to your opponent's speech. So there's not really that much, I guess, like movement available in order to like basically cut your own card. And at most you can cut one, which won't have like that great of an effect on the overall round, unless it's like a devastating card. But like basically you want to create your blocks beforehand, because I think that's the most important, because it gives you like a general idea of preparation, like the amount you've prepared kind of gives you confidence in that okay, if my opponent runs this, I can counter them with this. Like you don't want to make it in round. It's just not a great idea. So now I'll show you a case that I've had. Okay, so yeah, so this is a case that I created a couple of months ago. Or I think it's a long time ago. It's an old case. But basically you have like, you can have an intro. Like this is for the Martin Luther King Jr. Invitational, which I placed top 8 at. Out of like, I don't know, 100 something. So I basically said, as Martin Luther King Jr. once said, we are not makers of history, we are made by history. It's always good to have a good intro, like specifically if it connects to your tournament. And I basically said, and because our history teaches us that oppression is not something to be taken lightly, I am proud to affirm the resolution resolved. Justice requires open borders for human migration. So this was the topic. And then you can always, first, open borders is defined as, et cetera, et cetera. Open border policies allow people to, move freely between different countries. And then you can also have another definition which states that an open border, citizens and non-citizens. Vikram, do you have a question? Okay, I just saw you waving your hand. Okay. So, you can always make those definitions. So then you can make some clarifications here if you see what I'm highlighting. So you can say the question of the resolution is a normative one, whether or not justice requires open borders. Thus, the affirmative is essentially arguing for why open borders are good on balance, which means like generally creates a better world. Then you can value justice. Then you can offer maximizing societal well-being. So by maximizing societal well-being, you promote justice. Then you can go into the first contention of whatever you want. Then you have the 2 subpoints. Then you have another, contention, second contention, economy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So like there's a lot of nuance and changes towards the general idea. But that's just how it is. So the final thing I want to talk, maybe I'll move this to the next session because oh, it's called flowing. So if you can see this really long piece of paper I have, can everyone see it? So this is longer than a regular piece of paper. So this is what you use to track all your debate events on. So you can write your own case, all the points here. Then here will be what the opponent says against you. And basically you want to track whatever goes on like in the debate on a piece of paper, because then you can like reference that, look at your, computer, see what you need to respond to. And that's basically a really important part of debate, because without flowing, you can't really track the arguments. You can't track where it's going, what you need to catch up on, like things of that nature. So we'll have a like debate flowing workshop soon. And that's something I also want to focus on because it's really, really important. So for the judge criteria, so what do judges look for in a debate? So they look for clarity and organization. Judges appreciate debaters who communicate their arguments clearly, concisely, and logically. They look for well-structured speeches with clear introductions, transitions, and conclusions. I'd say it's pretty important because when you look at the general area of all the, I guess like judges, they're generally parent judges. So they're usually your parents like volunteering for a weekend to come to your tournament. So you want to make it as easy as possible for the judges to understand. For the content and argumentation, yeah, can you guys like pay attention? The class is almost over, so for the content or argumentation, judges evaluate the quality and depth of the arguments presented. So they assess the relevance, coherence, and strength of the evidence and reasoning used to support those arguments. So make it as easy as you can for your judge regarding clarity and the content. Judges love to see a lot of clash and engagement between different arguments. So don't try to avoid your opponent's arguments, and your opponent shouldn't try to avoid yours. You want to like fight as much as you can. Like, okay, they make this point, I want to refute this. I make this point. Like, that's really good. So judges seek debaters who actively engage with their opponent's arguments. They look for effective refutation where debaters address and challenge the opposing team's key points rather than merely restating their own arguments. Okay, so you need to have strategy in case development. So you need to develop your case contention and contention. So judges assess the debater's ability to develop a comprehensive and persuasive case. They look for debaters who build their arguments strategically using a combination of offensive, supporting their own case, and defensive arguments. For the rebuttal and summary, judges pay attention to the quality of rebuttals. They expect the debaters to identify and respond to most important arguments made by their opponents. In these summary speeches, judges look for an effective synthesis of key points, emphasizing the most crucial arguments and providing a clear voting issue for the judge. So you always need to have voters. So the voters are basically like the people who are affected. So judge, you should vote for the affirmative because we present this, this, and this, and our impact is this, this, and this. We improve this. Like you kind of need to make that like chain. That's called a link chain, where you create a chain of arguments that the judge can clearly see and the judge can vote on. And for any debate, you need to have good delivery and communication skills. Judges evaluate debaters' delivery style, including clarity of speech, tone, and nonverbal communication. Effective use of gestures, eye contact, and vocal variation can enhance a debater's overall impact. So judges will also, analyze you on the knowledge of your topic and the general ethical conduct and sportsmanship. Judges expect debaters to engage in fair and respectful debate, refraining from personal attacks or unethical attacks. Demonstrating good sportsmanship and maintaining a professional demeanor throughout the round is highly valued. And they also look for time management. You have a 15-minute grace period after every speech, at least in Lincoln Douglas, in order to finish up what you're saying. After that, you will be docked speaking points, which is a rating the judges give you at the end of the round. Now, lastly, so for general debate etiquette, always respect your judge. They are usually parent volunteers. Always respect your opponent during the round. That means no weird face gestures like or like any condescending language. Don't get too heated in the cross-examinations and the crossfires because that can come off as rude and almost too aggressive. You always need to wear a suit. You got to be professional. Come prepared with a lot of flow paper, which is like this long paper I've shown you. This long paper. And come with a lot of pens. So everyone usually use the gel G2 pens, which is like almost like a meme where it's like, okay, everyone must use these pens. you should probably bring a lot of water because it's good. Like when you're talking really fast or you're thinking really quickly, water is really good for, I guess, like lubricating all like the moving parts in your body, like especially in your brain. And one interesting thing about most debates is you got to look at the judge even when you're addressing your opponent's case. This may be hard for some people, but you need to directly look at your opponent and say, my opponent's case, this, and this. You can't look at your opponent and do that, if that makes sense. And especially if you mess up, don't show frustration. Most judges will let bad presentation pass if you have extremely good arguments. Focus on the material you have and you can still win the debate. And that is my presentation. I'll post the homework and everything on the Google Classroom, and I'll also post the slides on there if you need any clarification. And I'll drop my personal email in the chat if anyone has any questions. Or if anyone has any questions, you can go ahead and ask them now, but I'll also drop my email if you have any questions.
Do you really have to actually wear a suit, or can you just wear something that's still professional?
Usually you want to wear a suit because judges are supposed to not care, but everyone wears a suit and you don't really want to be that one person that comes in, I guess, like what is something that's professional that's not a suit? Could you give me an example?
Shirt and tie.
You probably want to wear a suit because like a suit, and for like women a dress, so that's usually the dress code. It's important that you like be as professional as you can, like dress shoes, the whole nines, like head to toe. You want to be as professional as you can because the way you present yourself is also part of the debate, because you want to present yourself as someone knowledgeable, as someone who's has I guess like a clear understanding. And a lot of like the biases kind of like of the judges come to when like someone is extremely well dressed and someone is like poorly dressed. It kind of like makes I guess like a back and forth contrast between who they think is the better debater sometimes. But just give importance to what you wear, and I think that's all you should like really know. I put my email in the chat for anyone who wants to email me for extra questions. I'm always free. I can maybe do a voice chat or like or even a call if you have any questions. Does anyone have any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, will we have like a thing where you had to wear a suit and tie?
Usually, wait, could you repeat that?
Will we have like a thing where you had to wear a suit and tie, or is this like professional?
So like
does it-
I recommend always wearing a suit and tie because both men and women and like everyone wears like a
no,
Yeah.
like is it like an event we had to go to like in school, or is this like for like
So usually like when you join a debate program in your high school or middle school, there'll be tournaments other places. Sometimes they're online tournaments, like we'll be debating over like video call like this. And other times it'll be more like it'll be in person where you go into a classroom at a high school or a middle school and that you debate there. And it's important to have a suit. Like you should probably just, like if you're really dedicated into debate, you should go buy a good suit that'll last you for like multiple, like I guess like months, like not even months, like just years in general. Like have something you can present yourself in, have something that you're confident in. I think that's really important.
okay?
Yeah, any other questions, or we can go ahead and wrap up the meeting.
I have one more comment. It's not really a question though.
Yeah.
So I know I brought it up before in the middle of class, but I searched it up.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, when I saw online like how many debaters are there in each like team?
Mhm.
Some said 3, some said 2, some said like sometimes even 4.
For a team.
Yeah.
So what event is that? I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what like if you narrated down which debate I'll look more into it because I'm actually curious myself, but
Yeah, I
the
haven't heard of like any main event. As far as I know, for the like National Association of Debate, like the NSDA, they don't have any event that they have like 3 per team. So the max they have is 2 per team and 4 people in total. So at least that's for the nationally recognized debate events. Like that's the tournaments you want to be involved in.
I think it would have been just school because I was in like the school debate team and that's where we learned it. So
All right, so I believe Tej has their answer or their hand up, so I can go ahead and answer the question.
So in like debate, when you're going to a debate meeting or something, what will your coach be doing or something? What will your coach be doing?
Wait, could you repeat that question? I'm not sure what you mean by that.
What will your coach be doing in a debate?
So usually like when you go to a debate tournament, you'll, like first like hand in the morning, like around 7:30, like I believe debate tournaments start like generally pretty early. You'll meet with your whole squad. Your, coach will give you a general like idea of what's going to be going on. I also want to show something. This is the main website for like all debates. It's called tabroom.com. Okay, let me screen share. So most, I guess, judges are like, or your coaches will be, I accidentally closed the window. Let me open it. Okay, sorry. So most of the time your coaches will be running the tab room, which basically means like it's where they, kind of make the pairings, like they initiate the pairings, they release the results, like all that type of stuff. I'll show you what that looks like. So can everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
So this is like the place where you can go ahead and look at all the like tournaments and whatnot, and your coach will do like all the registration for you. They'll give you coaching before the rounds, and specifically like in each tournament, they'll I guess like help you out, because I know like specifically in some of these tournaments, like the NSDA last chance. Oh, okay. Last chance qualifier, right? Like they'll talk to like everyone, like, before they win, or like before, you go into a tournament. So, and also like for a lot of the invitational tournaments, so they have elimination rounds over here. Can everyone see that? Like this, like what I'm highlighting?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's elimination round. So for a lot of invitational tournaments where you have to be like invited if you're like good enough, such as like this one, you need to win 4 out of the 6, like the first couple of rounds. And then for this tournament, there were 3 elimination rounds. I only made it past the first elimination. But there's a lot of tournaments like that. Here. So like you have to win the first 6, or yeah, first 4, or like, just 4 in general. And then based off that, they'll like, if you're good enough, they'll give you a bye, which basically means like you get to skip the first elimination round. So there's a lot of nuance to whatever you want to do, but that's like the main website where you can see all your results. And that's like a general, I'll explain all the tournament formats later. So in like the next one. So Ishan, if you want to go ahead and ask a question.
When did you start debating?
So I started debating when I was I'd say freshman year. I started like debating on my own freshman year, and then when I like I joined the school team sophomore year. Yeah. Yeah, if anyone wants to come to Archbishop Midi, we're like top 20 in the entire nation for debate. So Tej, you have another question?
Oh no, I just forgot to put my hand down.
So if anyone has any other questions, I can go ahead and ask them. If not, we can conclude the meeting, or like if you're done, you can start leaving the meeting.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Bye. Thank you. Bye. Bye. Thank you.
If there's anyone who wants to ask any questions, I'll stay behind. Okay, that's me.